So, welcome everyone. So, let's begin with the Ganesh mantra, and we'll do two little. I've got two very beautiful mantras for the Devi for you guys because it is the Navratri going. So, गणानां त्वा गणपतिगुं हवामहे कविं कवीनामुपमश्रवस्तमम् ज्येष्ठराजं ब्रह्मणां ब्रह्मणस्पत आनः शृण्वन्नोतिभिः सीदसादनम् प्रणो देवी सरस्वती वाजेभिर्वाजिनीवती धीनामवित्र्यवतु गणेशाय नमः सरस्वत्यै नमः श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरि ओम शांति 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 Okay, so welcome everyone. And one of my favorite verses from the Dhyanam of the Bhagavad Gita, Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yat kripatamaham vande paramananda madhavam. So, as you can see, the meaning is absolutely beautiful, right? Everybody will agree with that.
Mm,
So the two mantras I wanted to share with you before we begin, and it's kind of like your takeaway for, um, for this session is Om Shreem Shri. It's actually wrong. There shouldn't be a dot here. It's Om Shreem Shri Adi Lakshmi Saubhagyam Dehi Dehi Swaha. So Om Shreem Shri Adi Lakshmi Saubhagyam Dehi Dehi Swaha. And the other beautiful mantra is Om Shreem Shriye Namah Swaha. I think some of you may be familiar with this mantra, right?
mm,
No? Yeah. So Om Shreem Shri, Om Shreem Shriye Namah Swaha. Om Shreem Shriye Namah Swaha. Okay. Okay, let's continue. So, so why nakshatras and why bother with all of this? Okay, you may well ask me. Now, see, the nakshatras gives us a very important clue, and it's everywhere, including in all the Vedic texts, all the Purans, all the Shastras have a huge mention of the nakshatra, including the Rig Veda, which is one of the oldest. Now, I have been researching about exactly how old and in terms of the Vedas and the various Puranas and, especially the Ramayana and Mahabharata. But it is not easy at all, okay? And there are many scholars who have a different opinion, okay? Some say 6,000 BC, some say 5,000 BC, some say, even older. Um, like this, some say the Ramayana, one of the great scholars, Nilesh Oak, he talks about the Ramayana dating it to 12,000 BC, right? So it's all sort of, and we have only the word of the Shastras to rely on. Now, you could well say, hey, what about all the things, the ancient relics that is found, and, all the carbon dating? But you have to realize even more much more older than the carbon dating is the the Shastras where it all has mentions of. And now also you all have to realize is that a lot of these texts, the Puranas, got written much, much later. So people pass this knowledge to through Guru Shishya Parampara, so by word of mouth, from the Guru to the Shishya, and they chanted, and that's how the Rig Veda, and that is also one of the prime reasons why, when you look at all the stotras chanting, all kinds of chanting, so much stress is given to it, okay, including the Bhagavad Gita. And so the stress is on the chanting, and Sanskrit is a very phonetic language, and there is no doubt that the origin of Latin is linked to Sanskrit. So there is that being one of the oldest languages. Then we could well say, hey, what about, but we are not going to go into the discussion of you know uh, the Jesus Christ and all of that, because that will take our focus away from what we are looking at. And my main intention is to kind of the ancient Indian system of the almanac, which is the Panchang. and and why the Panchang, you may say? It's because of the oldest system of observing the sky, which is the fixed stars. Okay, now the fixed stars have a very, sort of mention almost everywhere. And that has also helped a lot of the Indologists and the scholars, historians, especially the one I mentioned earlier, the Nilesh Oak, um, to sort of do some kind of dating of the various itihasas, which is Ramayana and Mahabharata. So you see, it is all very much linked to the stars, the planets, and especially the nakshatras. Now, the Vedanga Jyotish is like definitely one of the oldest astronomical texts of ancient India, and it has many mentions of, portions of it coming from the Rig Veda and the Yajur Veda. And so that means it would have existed even there. And then we talk about the seasons and the winter solstices, the summer solstice, the equinoxes, and all such thing. And so all of these have been dated, if you see, is 1150 BCE to 1400. But of course, what has helped us? It's the stars, is the nakshatra system. Okay, the nakshatra, there is no doubt about that. So if you look at the equinoxes, the vernal equinox, the autumnal equinox, and that, of course, through all the yugas, it has changed. So what was once the winter solstice, which began in Shravishta, it could well have been at a different period. Yes, indeed, it would have been at maybe not in Dhanishta or Shravishta, as we say, but much earlier or much later. And the seasons would have coincided, because we are talking of, like, you know, thousands and thousands of years ago, which is no mean feat. But we find the mention of the planetary movements in Surya Siddhanta, and but the Vedanga Jyotish is even older to the Surya Siddhanta, because there we are talking predominantly of the interplay of the sun and the moon, okay? And what position they occupy in the zodiac. And as we say, they had a very structured system of 5 years, which begins with the fortnight. And each of these months, is whether it's Magha or it's based on the stars, okay? It's based on the full moon in Shravana is based on which signals the advent of the lunar month, and that is based on the full moon in Shravana. And so, there is so much depth to it. Then we get even more further clues when we talk about not just, they don't just name it in terms of the nakshatra, like, Shravishta, but they would say Vasava. Now, Vasava is often the referred to as like the Ashtavasus. Now, you may well wonder, well, how come all this is happening? Why are they referring to instead of calling it Shravishta? But that has been always the case that they refer to the deities, the Vedic deity which is associated with all of these asterisms, okay? And then we go into what the yuga and so essentially what I'm trying to say is, without the knowledge of the nakshatra, without the knowledge of all the constellation in depth along with their deity, we will be completely lost, because we will not have a perspective, and everything about the bigger picture is everything about Jyotish. Vedanga Jyotish is about the bigger picture, because where are you at this point in time? Now, again, there are some little bits and pieces. I don't, is just for your information, which I find quite fascinating. That even the ritus, the months Madhu and Madhava, they are making up the Vasant Ritu, which is the spring season. Okay, Madhu and Madhav. Now, Madhu is honey. You know that the spring season is such a beautiful season. It is also the advent of where all the flowers are super blooming and things like that. And there is a mention of it even in the Ramayana, that when Sri Ram was born, everything was blooming. It was Vasanta Ritu. Even when he was being coronated, it was the Vasant Ritu. And there are mentions of it about the constellations and how the seasons and Madhu and Madhava, come into the picture, which is so sweet. Madhava is another name for Krishna or Vishnu, and Madhu is the sweetness of the honey formed from the honey bees. And so it all makes up the season of the spring. Shukra and Suchi make up making up the summer season. Shukra and Shuchi, so that's like Venus, and Shuchi is the wife of Indra. So you see, and that's related to the summer season where everything is super hot, and so as you can tell, that all of these are not random names, okay? They are actually hugely relevant to what the stars and the constellations. So that is something which you have to understand, is it's like a vast universe and you are entering it, and literally it is, it's like a gateway you're opening up, and this gateway is one of the most beautiful things. And you may well say, well, tell me about predicting. Well, but that is the prediction, because all of these people have been able to, all the scholars have been able to date literally Mahabharat, the Ramayana, and all the Rigvedic texts and all the Purans. How do you think they managed to do that? Because there is mention of all the nakshatras all the time, of the seasons all the time, of the tithis all the time. And that is how they have successfully managed to date it. So you see, that is why the importance of, if they are able to go back into time, then surely there has to have some relevance in terms of like prediction. And what is more relevant? This is just like little images here. I love some of the images here about the vernal equinoxes and all that. But coming to, for example, okay, Aldebaran is like one of the brightest stars in the constellation of Taurus, okay? And one of the big stars, like the Yogatara as they call it, is Aruga, right? Which is one super, super bright, and it is in sort of in a shape of a chariot, okay? As you can see. Now, there is mention in the Mahabharata, there is mention in that when any huge like volcanic eruptions, climate changes resulting because of the volcanic eruptions, which wipes out a big chunk of the population, which wipes out civilizations. And if there is wars and famine and all sorts of things, then it is said that Rohini Sakata Bhedanam. Bhedanam is to kind of diversify, to break things up, to kind of divide things. And Sakata is kind calamitous, and Rohini. So again, we may see that there is again always some mention about the stars, the constellation, the nakshatra. And so it is said that when Saturn or Mars is near Rohini nakshatra, and this is even in Brahad Samhita as well, not just in the other Yajurvedic texts as well as in Mahabharata. It's there also in Brahad Samhita. It's there in loads of texts. So there we see mention, or even including in Ramayana. So it forebodes some huge destruction and evil coming in. Okay. So that means that the sages were calling this the breaking of the Rohini's wane. So it's like when these two malefics enter, kind of like the what do you call, the main entry into the star of which is looks like the shape of a chariot, then mankind will suffer hugely. Okay. Now, this is a proper prediction, right? You would say. Now, you could well look like we can feel the energy of the war currently anyway, and we do know that it's in 2030 to 2032 when Saturn will be in the constellation, in the covering those constellations of Kritika and Rohini and Mrigashira in lying in Taurus. Okay, we know that will happen, and we also know that at some point it may conjoin Mangal, but probably not in Rohini. Okay, so yeah, so this is a very powerful sort of way to predict. Okay, and that is also another reason which I am hugely inspired, because Rohini, is the birth star of Sri Krishna. And if you look at his biggest achievement, or his Sri Krishna Bhagwan, his greatest of contribution to mankind, to the entire world, is the Bhagavad Gita. I mean, there is nothing that the Bhagavad Gita cannot resolve. There is nothing on this planet that most people from whatever walks of life, you don't have to be a Hindu to be able to identify with despair, depression, and adverse circumstances, and be feeling completely helpless in the plight of yours, where there is no understanding of karma, where you're completely distraught, just like we identify with Arjuna, okay, in Bhagavad Gita. And so that if you look at most books, they will always carry the image of Sri Krishna on the chariot, right? And so, what is this chariot? The charioteer, he has been the charioteer. So, that is a symbolism of Rohini. So you see, there is a lot to be gleaned from just the mythology, the Vedic deity of Rohini, or for that matter, any of the constellations, because that will give us a huge clue as to how we move forward. If we want to, if we have actually Saturn in Rohini, then we know that what we can do, in order to overcome some of the problems. And of course, donation, charity, and I'm not talking of donation as in like, oh, throw the money at the problem. It's nothing to do with the money. It is always about the tapas. Okay, that is why. And why do I say tapas? Because if you see here, I just if you see here, the Hemanta Ritu is Saha and Sahasya, and Tapas and Tapasya is making up the Shishir Ritu. Shishir is like deep winter. And in the winter, what can you do when there's no vegetation, when the food is scarce because nothing really grows, it's so cold? What else have the rishis done? They've done tapasya, they've done dhyana, they've done yoga. Yeah. So you see how relevant all of this is, because this, in order to overcome any of the problems of, afflictions of the nakshatra in, and I'm bringing down to your own arena, our own lives, then we know that what we need to do. And in forthcoming few years, we are going to, and this is not about fear mongering, and it is not about, but we are in one of the most difficult periods we possibly are going to be ever in our lives. There is no two ways about it. Till 2032, Saturn going into Rohini, and or Saturn in Taurus for that matter. And there is, by the way, a conjunction in 2030 or 31 of Shani in with Mangal in Kritika. So you see, it is not, and Kritika is the lord of it is Agni, and Agni is a very powerful deity, extremely powerful. It will burn things, you know. So, so okay, I think you may want to. Okay, guys, you may want to, yeah, mute your. Thank you. So everybody getting this, right? That how powerful it is. Now, coming back to the role of the sun and the moon, right? We all know that Lord Krishna belongs to the Chandra Vamsha. There is a lineage of the moon, and it is believed that the whole dynasty of his had possessed the 16 kalas of the moon, that this amrita kala is like the nectar of the moon. Okay, and it had, and he possessed it all. So compared to Sri Ram, which is he possessed, I think, 15 or 14. So you see, there is a difference between Sri Ram and Sri Krishna. Even though, as per Rishi Parashara, it says that Sri Ram is the avatar and he's from the sun, and Krishna is from the moon, but yet why should the moon have through Lord Krishna have more kalas, more amrita kalas? And these are nothing but like powers and attributes which are like heavenly nectar full attributes. And the reason behind it is also to do with, Krishna is, there is nothing that in this Kali Yuga, because he is the avatar for our Kali Yuga, and so there is nothing that praying or kind of, finding your connection with Lord Krishna in some way or form can alleviate a lot of the issues. And like even in Mahabharat, when Draupadi was being, I don't know if any of you know the story, but you can check it out. When she was being sort of like, had a huge problem regarding the food, and, she didn't have she was running out of, they were all, the Pandavas and Draupadi were in exile, and so they had loads of rishis come to their house. Now it is an insult if you don't give food and keep supplying food for the rishis, and they kept coming and they kept coming, and then she was left with a morsel of rice and all, and she was distraught because of course, it's bad enough living in the jungles with all the problems, and then you get the curse of the rishis for lack of food, and not doing, being hospitable enough. So she remembered in her adversity, uh, uh, you know, Shri Krishna. And that's when the concept of Akshay Patra came about. Akshay Patra is like, the Patra is the vessel where it is unending. So there's an abundance which is going to be unending. So the food they kept coming, the rishis kept coming one after the other, and they kept eating. And the bowl of rice kept filling up on its own. And that is the power of the 16 kalas of Sri Krishna. Versus Rama is a little bit kind of trickier. And so here we get a very important clue as to the nakshatra of Sri Krishna, which is the Rohini, while that of Sri Rama is about Punarvasu. Now, remember one thing, Sri Ram went through hell and back, and he needed to, and he came in, both of them came in the human body, but there was a difference. Bhagwan, Lord Krishna knew he was the Bhagwan. I don't think Sri Ram was fully aware of his existence as an avatar. And plus, he also needed to, he felt the pain of his wife getting separated, being forlorn, being depressed. He felt all of the pain which a human being feels throughout, throughout their lives. There's adversaries, there's, you lose it, you've been born in a huge kingdom, you've been born in wealth, and then suddenly you are evicted from your family. This happens to people all the time. It may not be at various points of time. So you see, so there is that nakshatra of Punarvasu, which has a very different flavor, extremely different compared to Rohini, where Rohini is a master communicator, a mastermind, right? And compared to Punarvasu, where completely, when he was completely distraught, when he just gave up, there was nobody, Hanuman had not even appeared at that point of time, and he was like, what am I going to do? How am I going to get my wife back? And I have all of these things to fight. I have no idea where she's gone. And that's when Hanuman appeared. So you see, at some point, through absolute going through such torture and distraught and despair, he eventually had some help. And that is always going to be seen in the natives of people who have Punarvasu as a significant signature, whether it is a lagna or it is the moon, or, they will absolutely, everything in their lives will fall to pieces. Absolutely, there is no two ways about it. So you see, this is a very important um, way of, because we know that eventually you will get it back. And why do I say you will get it back? Because the deity of Punarvasu is Aditi, and Aditi is the celestial mother of the gods, you know so Rahu is going to be a big issue, because Aditi, if you follow the journey of Aditi, you know she was very proud of all her solar kids, all the Adityas, but there was one that she was not proud of at all, and that is Rahu. So she kept pushing him back when she went to display, hey, look at my brood, here they are, all of them in front of Indra, and while she kept pushing Rahu back. So this again gives us a huge clue about where will Punarvasu flip? Where will they fall? At the clutches of Rahu, it'll bring them to their knees. And Ravana was Rahu for sure. He lived in a foreign world. He lived, at least in those times, he lived in a foreign world, and he behaved like Rahu. He, kidnapped, and that is a perfect Rahu behavior. So, is everybody getting this? Yeah? Okay. So the five angas of Panchang, and I am sure for people, some of you who have done Panchang with me before, we've already gone through some of this stuff, but I want to keep coming back to this particular section about the five angas of Panchang will is always involves the luminaries, and it is always about the luminaries, because just through the longitudinal degrees of the luminaries you can understand the tithi, vara, nakshatra, yoga, and karana. Where is the luminary? Which nakshatra is the luminary in? What pada it is in? So when we talk of the 27 constellations, each of the constellations have further subdivision of four. So that all, if you add up, multiply all that, it all comes to 108, which is nothing but our japa mala, right? So it's like a mandala, it's like a whole 360 degrees mandala that has been created. And so somewhere along, we have to figure out the tithi, the vara, what is the karana. Again, some of you who are not here, we've done loads of stuff on karana as well. And of course, my focus for this course is yoga and nakshatra. And the yoga and nakshatra are very much connected as far as Panchang goes. And we are not talking initially when we do the next few sessions on the yoga, we are talking of the yoga in the Panchanga, which is even more vital and more it's like a segue into the yoga of the nakshatra, yoga of the jyotish, where then you get into your chart and you see position of your sun, planets in the bhavas and all that. But even without all of that, what is the yoga? What yoga are you born in? What nakshatra are you born in? And that carries a huge, it is make or break. And why do I say that? Because through the knowledge of the nakshatra, you will be able to figure out that where is your sins, where is your karma, where is, what do you owe to whom, you know and that will make things so easy. And and knowing of the yoga will relieve one of one's ailments, one's problems in life, one's ongoing issues that we keep facing will come to a sort of like an acceptance, understanding, and we will know what to do with it. And while the nakshatra will completely throw light on our karma, completely. The moon nakshatra will tell you exactly, forget what sign it is and all that. All you have to do is which nakshatra it is in, and it will give you a whole what you did, what pada it is in, and it will give you a whole angle to what happened in your life, last life. And then you can start to build the layers at which house it goes in, and what which it rules which house, the particular moon rashi, which house the moon rules. And but those are just little extra frills and all that, but the main thing is it will give you a huge insight into it. Okay, so now each of these Panchanga, as you know, the elements of the Panchang have the Natha with it. That is a particular planet that rules it. Okay, a particular planet that connects it, and it gives you all the ammunition to make things work, to carry forward. Like Vara, the day of the week you're born, it epitomizes the Agni in your body. You need a Agni fire to digest. You need digestive fires. You need fire to go about your desires, to go about doing your karma yoga. So all of that comes under the Vara and their particular Natha. I'm born on Friday, so my Venus, I have to ensure that the Venus is always tickety boo. It's like always well. Otherwise, what was going to happen to my energy levels? They are going to take a dive, right? It's very simple. For people who have Vara in 6th, 8th, and 12th, they have to go that extra mile to make sure, by doing various yogas and things like that, to make sure that it is always healthy. Similarly, the Tithi will give us a huge clue as to our happiness in life and our, financial success and so on. It will tell us if we are happy in a relationship, then of course we are going to be, we will be inspired to do better. But if we are not happy with our relationships per se, then we are going to be absolutely distraught. You know, we are going to be lonely, and human beings are not supposed to be lonely. Everybody here is on a mission, but the relationship karma is a very important part of resolving it. You know, whether you have a relationship or not, or whether you have enough non-attachment to it, where you've seen so much of up and downs in relationship that you're like, okay, I can say goodbye to it. And then that's vairagya, where you are fairly non-attached to it. But that itself, the journey is through the tithi and the Yoganatha. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. For the Yoganatha, it is the Akash Tattva. That means the whole world is literally, it is the binder. It binds us. What does Jupiter do? It's one of the greatest benefits. So it will bind, it will manifest, right? And the whole so that particular yoga that you are born in, do not make no mistake, it is very specific and it will manifest in your life, because each yoga is a very different way of looking at your, and it gets, this yoga gets connected, because the yoga is nothing but a kind of a subtle connection with the nakshatra, because each of these yoga are ruled by a particular nakshatra. And then it gets even more interesting, because the nakshatra, whatever the Lord you have to take and figure out whether this Lord is, because everyone will have a Lord, and that Lord will give you a huge clue as to the support you will get. It's like the matrikas, whether the matrikas are there to support you, but it is only a question of whether you can activate it or not. And then we have, of course, a Karananath, which we have covered in great depth in our talk, in our earlier lessons. So we won't go into that. So the concept of Nath is a very beautiful concept. It is used as an epithet for Lord Shiva, as per Shiv Mahapuran, where so the yoga nakshatra both have a Natha, and that will help you to forge ahead. It will give you, it's like a savior, it's like truly, it's true hero in your chart. And it was, so all of these are various meanings as per Nath, just one word, Nath, which is about protection, and how this protection is comes in various forms of Shiva. Vama, Vama Rupa, Vama Netra, Agora, the great Lord, and the Vikata. So, as you can see, it is absolutely mandatory that that you know the link at least between the yoga and the nakshatra, and how and where do you stand, and what do you have to do to sort of bring it, what do I say, to minimize the problems in a way. Anyone, any questions? Uh, yeah, yeah. Justin, yes. What do you mean by the yoga you're born into? Yeah, so each of these yoga we will see maps to a particular, we'll come to the yoga in a bit. So each of the yoga maps into a particular nakshatra. So the tithi of the moon we already have done, so I won't go into it. And these are all the Uttara, as per Uttara Kala Amrita, all the significations of the moon. And if you have, what will it give you if you were to make the moon stronger, because the moon is one of the most important graha among the luminaries. The luminaries, of course, the sun is definitely important, but the moon is your body. It's the water, and we are made up of 90, what percent water are we made up of? At least our eyes definitely are made up of 97 or 90, is it 97% water? Something like that, right? So coming back to, let's move forward, okay? So this is like some of the importance. The whole of the Panchang, you have to understand, gets linked up absolutely beautifully, because the tithis of the moon that you're born in, get linked in terms of even some of the in terms of the Nitya Devis, the specific Devis, and and each of these Nitya Devis have a sound, a Sanskrit sound attached to it. And it has a breath and a mantra which is very, very powerful. And the whole, it is said that each of them have their own yantra, mantra, and of course the tantra. And the full circle of the Nityas represent, which is over here, I think, if I can. Yeah. This is like the whole circle, the whole, as we saw all the tithis and, how it was mapping. So all of this, the whole full circle represent 21,600 breaths of a human being, which takes a full day and night. And the Nityas are the Kal Chakra. They are the wheel of time. So this is a very powerful link. Like I said, it is not just about the sun and the moon, but it goes much deeper, because we are then talking about the tithi, and then we are talking about the sounds, we are talking of the language, Sanskrit, we are talking about the signification of each of these Nitya Devis. Um, okay. And each of these Nitya Devis are modifications of Lalita with her three gunas, her five elements of various ether, air, water, and earth. And they all reside in the Kal Chakra, right? Which is nothing but the Sri Chakra, the Tithi Chakra, or the wheel of time, which is constantly churning. So you see, it is all getting linked into this, whether it is a yantra or it is extremely, it is not just about the astronomy. It is not just looking up in the sky and say, hey, this is the my constellation, this is my moon rashi. It is also about connecting the dots in terms of the deity, and in terms of what the karma it carries, and the ultimately when all everything is down and out, what is the specifics that will help you to overcome some of the issues. So we won't go too much. So again, this we can go many, much more in detail, but of course, I don't want to go too much. But I've put this chakra because this is the Sri Yantra, and how the Tripura Sundari is one of the main presiding deity. I mean, everything is all about her. All the variations. She's like the Adi Shakti, and so are all of them are forms of her. And depending on what tithi you are born, what nakshatra you are born, because tithi and nakshatra are similar in terms of their feel, and so in terms of even the degrees. So all of them are literally getting connected with all the chakras in our body, all the nadis in the body. And if there is a blocked chakra, that can help you to kind of force or clear the blocks. Anyway, so again, there is more stuff on how Lord Shiva says about the center of the world is Meru, and the seven oceans beyond it. And all of this is, we are all caught up in this particular Kal Chakra, which is the wheel of time. Now, what are these yogas? Okay, they are 27 in number. And so they are all getting mapped to the nakshatras. And like I said earlier, they are all, each of the nakshatras have a four pada. So let's look at the simple. I won't go do an example. Maybe when once we actually begin, I can go through, we can take some chart examples specifically about the calculation. But here, the duration of each of the yoga is nothing but the longitude of the sun and the moon plus Pushya Nakshatra. Okay, now you can well say Pushya is the exaltation of, Brahaspati. His deity is Brahaspati. Brahaspati is the actual giver of life for us. There are many explanations to that. So that is the reason why we are 93.20. Now, for those of you who have no idea what 93.20 is, here is the table for the calculation and made it very simple. So you can, all of these are the yoga on the left, and the nakshatras are here. So we begin with Pushya. As you can see, Pada 1, it's 93. So 3 degrees 20 minutes. So 93 degrees 20 minutes to 96 degrees 40 minutes. And similarly, 96 to 100, and all of them carry on. Everybody getting this? Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
difficult. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's easy. So each of these will go. Now, these are the static Nitya yogas, okay? Now, what do I mean by static? Because they remain more or less the same, okay? They begin with Pushya, but there is another classification which begins with from Ashwini. But again, we won't go into that because we can have a look at it and how it works, but for our forging our studies, we will continue with that, continue with the static one. Okay, so each of these have a particular you know logic and reason and karma, and a kind of a flavor, very specific flavor attached to it. Okay. Now, this is where it is the yogam or the yoga is it works is what works but does not work for you. So basically, it helps in overcoming a lot of the ailments, okay? Lot of the afflictions it helps you overcoming because it is mapped into the nakshatra, and the nakshatra that it maps into, the we get who which nakshatra, who's the deity for it, who's the devata for that nakshatra, who's the planet ruling that, and then we get a very very intimate thing about that. What is it carrying, what does it want? Okay. So um the yoga graha is one of the most important. It is like the saptamatrika, so that means that graha which maps into that particular nakshatra, okay, and the ruler of that particular nakshatra is called the yoga graha, and it is very important because it is like your equivalent to seven matrikas, seven mothers. So if you something happens to you, something terrible, negative, something problematic, um, then you know that there is at least one mother who will save you. And that's that yoga graha. Okay? Okay. So now here, even the Surya Siddhanta, and there are mentions about it, about this yoga. So then again, we are talking about why is it important to study this? Because ancient texts even talk about the yoga. They talk about the Vyatipata and Vaidriti, one of the worst yogas, where the sun and the moon are, if you look at it, they are very close by, but they are separated equidistant from the summer solstices. They are kind of or autumnal. So there is a particular yoga is like a combination, okay? When the sun and the moon are at a certain combination, then what is the effect it will have on your life? What is the karmic script it is carrying, which is very specific? And so it is so specific that the ancient astronomers were scared when there was a particular particular sun and moon going on, combination going on, or yoga going on, when there was Vyatipata and Vaidriti. So you can see that these are all equidistant. And this is when this happens, then you land up into this Vyatipata and Vaidriti. Now, for those of you, if you go and see some of the lives of people who are born in Vyatipata and Vaidriti, it is going to be full of turbulence, full of problems. There is um, if there's somebody has Tithi Pravesh, right, which is a solar lunar chart, which changes, it's like the birthday chart, which changes year by year. If it falls in Vyatipata and Vaidriti, because remember, in the Tithi chakra, Tithi chart, which we generate every year, the tithi never changes. The moon can change the nakshatra of it. It can go back and forth, but that also has a significance. And the yoga can also change, but the tithi will never change, right? So if you have encountered Vyatipata or Vaidriti, or maybe your yoga is not so close by, so there is going to be, that year is going to be a little bit problematic. Yeah. And so when the sun and moon are upon opposite sides of either solstice, then the Vyatipata results, and the sum of longitudinals being half circle. And
Sorry,
it is
Sonal. May I ask a
Patami.
question?
Yes, go on.
So, where do you find mention of this Vyati Pata and Vaidriti when you have a Panchanga? on the Titi Pravesh because you have
Yes,
a.
yes, of course, of course.
Ah, all right. There is because I never come across this. Only Shuba, Shuba. So this is completely new. Okay.
Yeah, of course. You have to learn to look at the Panchang every day.
Mm-hmm. All
You're
right.
Jyotishis. How can
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
ignore it?
Mm-mm-mm.
Yeah.
So is also if, for example, that day falls in one of these two yoga,
Mm-hmm.
so it's going to be a little bit difficult.
Of course.
All right.
Definitely.
Okay.
Because
Mm-hmm.
the term pata,
Yeah.
pata comes from Sanskrit patana. Patana meaning someone who's like fallen. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
pata in the present context literally means falling. So
Mm-hmm.
fault, transgression, calamity. So
Okay.
the people were very scared of these particular junctures when the sun and the moon were at equal longitudinal degrees on the either side of the solstices or equinoxes. So there was this fear, and it wasn't without reason.
Mm-hmm.
So there were, and these are the danger points in her revolution, and where the sun herself was unable to fall into the jaws or sun or the moon were more inclined to fall into the jaws of Rahu. So you see, that is an issue. And so this is what, and these are not alone. These two are the one of the worst ones, but there are others as well. So this first we have to identify what the problem is. We can't live in a life where everything is beautiful because it is not. It clearly is not. So with knowledge, you can deconstruct the worst calamity as long as you have the knowledge and keep a calm mind and keep walking. Even if you're in the middle of a war, if you keep walking, well, hopefully not not in the direction of the enemy, but maybe sometimes that helps too, provided you're well equipped. But if you keep walking, then somewhere along things will, enlightenment can happen through knowledge of some kind, which will give you a big clue to avert the disaster. And this is why even there is so much of mention of Vyatipata and Vaidriti. So these are, so yoga is not to be taken lightly. It is a very important concept. It is a very important, and it lays the foundation of actual yoga in your chart, in your kundali. And we haven't even been into your chart yet. And yet we are getting this huge mountain of information about the yoga. Is everybody understanding this? Yeah. So, um, so here we are. We'll stop here, but this is like a little thing about the classification. Three major classifications: Uttama Nama Yoga, Madhyama Nama Yoga, and Avayoga Nama Yoga. Right? So now, please note, don't go into a meltdown and a panic if you are in this Nama Yoga, please.
Yes.
Okay? Just calm down because it is many nuances we have to go through. Sometimes we we can overcome some of the issues, okay? Our faith and karma is a big healer, and time is a big healer, provided you're going in the right direction. Okay? So the Uttama Yoga, Nama Yoga, basically in previous life, these people have done some great deeds. So whatever happens to them, okay, in this life, most adverse circumstances they may have been born in, they will overcome it. Okay? They will overcome, they will rise up in their lives. And this particular, if you're born in the Uttama Nama Yoga, your life is all about um, last life's punya, which is carrying you through. Everybody getting this? Yes. So,
Yes.
and so does that mean like so the Preeti Saubhagyam is somebody who's very auspicious, Shobana, very bright, Vriddhi, it's about increase, because each of these have a Sanskrit meaning. They are very deep. Siddhi, you know, Siddhi, it's like Siddhi Ganesh, someone who makes the knowledge happen for you. Shivam, Siddham, Shubha, and Shubram. So all of these are very auspicious for, somewhere along you have done something good in previous life. Then we come to the Madhyama Yoga. They are kind of touch and go, so. If the yogi planet is good, then good results will ensue for them, because each of these, remember, are getting mapped to a particular nakshatra as well. So Ayushman, Sukarmam, Dhriti, Dhruva, Harshana, Vajra, Variyam, Sadhyam, Mahendra or Indra. So some of them are also it's influence from the names like Ayushman, Sukarma. So maybe in some of the softwares you will find Sukarma, but Sukarmam is South Indian pronunciation. Everybody getting this, yeah?
What do you mean, Sunan, by if the yogi planet is good? If it's a benefic or if it's in good dignity?
Yes, yes. I do mean that. If it is, we will see many examples. Don't worry, Isabel.
Okay.
We
But
have
it
a
could be Jupiter at the 8th and 11th lord. So is it really good?
yes, of course.
Okay.
Depends on where it is placed. If it is placed in a nice Rashi, auspicious Rashi, then definitely whom is it with? You know,
Okay.
Superb. Yeah, absolutely. So then that it'll all be depend on those results will ensue. So these people, through their hard work, through they will need some kind of luck and some kind of people to prop them up to be able to move forward. Okay, so they, even though if they are born in adverse circumstances, it is not that they will remain there, they will come up in life. But the Avayoga, Nama Yoga, which is Vishukhamba, Atiganda, Sula, or Shula, sorry, I beg your pardon, Shula, Ganda, or Gandam, Vyagrata, Vyatipata, Parigha, or Parigham, Brahma, and Vaidriti. So these have an issue because if you have risen very much high in life and if you have these, then at some point, let's say you are in the Avayoga Yoga Dasha, that particular Graha Dasha, then you will come crashing down. And the higher you go, the worst is the fall. So you have to be very careful, okay? But like I
So
said, does that mean you'll remain at the bottom forever? No, I'm not saying that. But you have to be aware of what is going to, what it is carrying, because they are also carrying a particular karma. And we will see it in great depth what it means.
it's
That
because
is,
of past life, like Papa, like Punya is for the Uttama, so for the Avayoga must be not really good karma.
yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Well,
So
like
maybe they
everything.
have offended somebody or offended a deity, done something wrong, and so they now need to, they will reap that karma.
Mm.
They will bring it to the fore in this lifetime. And it will be painful. But is it going to be forever? No, it's not like that. It's not going to be throughout.
It's
But
not all lifelong. It's not all lifelong.
Well, we like to believe it's not for lifelong, okay?
All right.
Yeah. We don't want to say, oh, it's going to be for lifelong, you're forever. It doesn't work like that, you know? Like I said, time is one of the best healers ever. Anyway, guys, so we stop here, okay? Is this interesting?
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Anyone, any questions?
Yes, it's a very interesting topic.
Okay, yeah, Justin. It is not beyond, we enter, we are not even looking at the chart yet. This is the Panchang, this is the almanac. We are not looking at anything in the chart. So, anyway, okay. So, anyone, any other questions?
No, waiting to deep inside this topic. Thank you. It's a very nice topic.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it will get linked up very beautifully into other topics. Okay, so we meet next week or next time. Okay.
Okay.
So, okay, thank you.